Test. There we go. All right, so we're going with this mic. All right, now we're back. We're back. How's everybody tonight? Good? Yeah. Well, we figured we'd start by getting you guys all liquored up. So hopefully everybody's had a good drink and everybody's a little more relaxed and we're ready to roll. I don't know, Angela. That's not a good start. We have to slow you down now. All right, so welcome everybody to the OPN's 27th pitch event. So we've come a long way in the last year and a half, so we're pretty excited to be here today. This is our third installment at City Hall, and we've brought a lot of great startups in today, and we've changed up the whole process a little bit to bring you guys a little bit more exciting panels, pitches, talk from AIO, so it's going to be pretty exciting in that sense. So lots of learning and a lot of engagement from you guys. So if you guys can, always support everything that we're doing on the social front, because I'm a social butterfly, as you guys all know. So please jump in at anything from Instagram or on Twitter and share some information and some love about what we're doing so that we can keep building all of these events for you guys to interact at. So what do we do at PitchIt? And what is the whole point of having OPN, the Open People Network? Well, the whole premise behind what we do is we help you guys spend less time trying to find money and more time growing your company. And at the end, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we've heard over the years was I spend a lot of time trudging trying to find money when I'm trying to grow my company and rather spend my time doing that. So we're there to try and help that and bridge the gap between all of the businesses that are working hard to sell and grow. Here are some of the companies that we've worked with, some of the brands, hopefully you'll recognize them. They've been going through and working and pitching with us. I think every one of these companies has pitched at some point in time in the last year and a half. So we want more. How do we get more and how do we keep running this? Well, some of the shows that we have coming up, the next session which we're going to talk about is the Up series, which is a series that we put on behalf of Frank and what he does in the Durham region. And then we have our next PitchitTO session, which is March 22nd. And we're doing every quarter we're doing York. And, every quarter we're doing York. And Durham will start up again as well. So we're pretty excited at all the new dates and times that we're putting together and trying to spread this across. Well, we're getting outside the GTA, but we're also hoping to get, we're working on doing some things in Waterloo and hopefully making our way into Montreal as well. So one of the things that are on the slotted list for exciting things coming up is on March 28th, we're going to be running with the Spark Center in Durham, with Durham Region. We're running the first look, which is an investor collision or Eastern Innovation Corridor, which is a whole program that has been put together and mirrors what has been going on in other regions. And the whole principle behind it is that we're trying to find and work with a lot of startups in the Durham region that get them all under one roof, so that you can showcase all of these to angel investors to start getting people excited about what's going on in the region. So we hope to be able to jump into other regions and be able to participate in their accelerator programs as well inside of their investor collisions. So as we mentioned about the Up series, this has been going on for, Frank, is it almost 2 years now? And which is really exciting. Frank's put together an awesome program where they bring in a speaker in the Durham region and it's all geared around sales. So they're veterans in the space and it's just how they're working and interacting with the community and how they've actually started to sell. So there's a lot of learning that comes from it. And it's on for about an hour where the speaker comes in and talks, and then they have a Q&A session. And here's some of the up and coming speakers. It runs once a month, so you have to check it out. It's pretty sick. I've learned a lot from it. So a little bit about myself. My name is Jeffrey Potvin, and I use this picture because why not? I could probably use one that was taken 10 years ago, but I thought, I'll use this one. It's kind of neat. Why not? So a little bit myself, angel investor, been working in the space for better part of 10 years, run and operate a software company, and mentor at Helix and work there as well, part-time helping in the entrepreneur section of the school. So there's lots of cool things that we do and help out with. So if you guys want to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's the little bottom corner there. Always game to chat and connect with you guys. So One of the cool things that's happened over the last year and a half at OPN is that we have continued to look and strive to grow bigger and do more exciting things. And two of the guys that I've been working quite closely with over the better part of the last year is Angelo and Frank. And the two of these guys have joined forces and come on board to help OPN grow and help more startups. And we decided that because these guys do this on a regular basis, full time, that this would be a great connection to have the three of us work together and put our heads together and see how we can work and help more startups. And we'll give a little bit more details, but I implore you guys to go over and meet them. Frank and Angelo are the two guys there. Maybe they'll stand up and show you who they are. There's Frank and Mr. Angelo. So I'm pretty excited to have new partners at OPN, but also excited that we'll be able to do a lot more in the community and help you guys get your businesses ready for funding. So today's event is sponsored by and has been a sponsor with us since day one, which is Flow Water. Unfortunately, today we weren't able to bring the water in. I won't say why. But they are a fan of what we do, and they'll be at all the events, and maybe we'll sneak them in next time. But no one heard me say that. So the other great partners that we've brought on, we have the Lodge on Queen, where we run all of our events from, which has been a great support and help to us. They're at 251 Queen. Symbol, Miller Thompson, both great partners, came together in the last year as well, supporting what we do. So we thank those guys for all their help and effort putting this together. And our other partners, the City of Toronto and Jag from Blockchain Fortress. Jag, because you stand beside me. I gotta point him out, Jag. So these are the guys that have made it happen, so we thank everybody for all their help. So as we mentioned at OPN, as we've been kind of starting to grow and do all these great things in the last few months, some of the things that we have done is we created an accelerator and a fund. So the accelerator, we started to work with new companies and figuring out how to help them grow and get in front of investors. And in that process, we started a couple months ago, we started on board new companies. And some companies, they're at different stages in their life cycle of getting to funding. So it's been pretty exciting. And with that, we decided we would want to create a fund, and it's called the Supporters Fund, just like football, if you guys are all football fans. And the reason we did that is we wanted to be able to support the startups that we work with. So if we can also help and coach and mentor and build up their business, we can also start to put dollars into that company to help them grow. And we do look at companies that are Series A and under, and we work with them pretty diligently to figure out how we can move them quickly. So if you guys have any interest, you're more than welcome to reach out, and we always love to meet and chat with everybody. And here's some of the companies that we've invested in the last couple months, as well as the ones that we're working with. So the format for today, as I mentioned, we changed things up a little bit. We have 3 companies pitching, so we've altered it from the 4. So we're gonna have 3 companies, they pitch, they have 11 minutes to pitch. They'll receive 1 minute of Q&A from the advisors, and then they have 5 minutes of Q&A from you guys. We will have some people walking around with mics, so please grab one of them to ask questions. Reason being is that we are capturing this on film. And when you do talk in the mic, Brian's asked me to say, try to keep the mic a little bit away from your mouth so that it doesn't get distorted. So today, our advisors. I'm a big fan of all 3 advisors. We've worked together for quite some time. So Benton Neong, who's been at our event before, big fan. He's part of the GTAN community and committee on helping and getting startups into the GTAN pitch. And he's been around, so he's a very knowledgeable and smart, and he provides lots of great details to the startup. So I'm a big fan. Gregory. Gregory has, in the past, exited a company. He is also from France, so that's already given him lots of points there, right, France? Of course, exactly. So from France, and he is a York Angel and also a VC. So he carries both sides of the fence, which is amazing, and we're glad to have him here as well. Annette is the president and CEO of Dentsu Aegis. She has been in the business for 30 years, which is amazing. And she carries a very in-depth knowledge of marketing and advertising and provides a lot of great feedback in that sense, and she's also part of AIO. And she'll be doing a talk a little bit later. And she likes dogs. Angel Investment Ontario. That's all you're going to get. She's going to share more details when she comes up. So let's thank the advisors, because these are the guys that are all going to tail after. The companies pitching today: Dash MD, Xmatic, and Genesis. Unfortunately, we actually had pictures and everything, but the computer crashed, so this was my typing, sorry. So, as always, we do a giveaway, so if you guys haven't handed in your business cards, please do so. We'll figure out when and where and how you do that, because everybody wants to win a t-shirt, and if it says OPN on it, why wouldn't you want an OPN t-shirt? Like, come on, it's big. All right, so we're gonna get right into it. Bear with me for 1 second. Genesis, you're up. And for the advisors, where's Annette? Oh, there she is. She was hiding. Okay. All right, well, you're up there. Guys, when you talk, when we get into the session, you'll just hit the button to speak on the mic. Yellow button.
Hello? Okay, perfect. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys all for coming. My name is Luna, here on behalf of Team Genesis. And at Genesis, we're essentially an organic waste processing company that converts restaurant food waste into PHA biodegradable plastics. And tonight, we're here to seek for investments to join our micro-seed round of up to $350,000, as well as introductions to waste management companies. So we'll get right into it. So the problem that we're solving is organic food waste. As you all know, humans waste over $1 trillion worth of food every single year. And over 95% of it ends up in landfills, where as it degrades anaerobically, it releases 7% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But the good news is, landfill space is actually running out, so times will be changing. As a result, over 20 regions across North America, including Vancouver, California, and also this year coming into Ontario, they have passed something called the organic landfill bans. Organic landfill bans, what it does is government sets a certain threshold in terms of how much organic waste can actually be put into landfills. And whoever exceeds that limit for a commercial entity like restaurants, they will be charged with extra fines. So, alternative solutions are urgently needed, and which is why we are here today to share our solution. And we will begin with the restaurant industry, because large, full-service restaurants like Jack Astor's produce a lot of organic waste, and they pay over $15,000 per year individually just to dump it into a landfill. And at Genesis, what we do is we charge them a slightly lower collection fee, roughly $12,000 instead per year, work with a third-party trucking company like GFL Waste Management, who collects that waste and brings it back to our centralized facility. Currently is our laboratory at the Best Institute. And what we do at our laboratory is we convert it into PHA biodegradable plastics and fertilizer. Now, PHAs are a type of high-quality, biodegradable thermoplastics, meaning they can be molded into many different end products, like bottles, cups, and as well as 3D printing filaments. So a little bit on our technology. How it works is that we take organic food waste, it goes into our first stage bioreactor, and in the first stage bioreactor, we have a type of microbial culture who eats the food waste and converts it into energy sources. And these energy sources exist in the liquid portion. The non-digestible solids are essentially further composted and turned into a fertilizer. And in the second stage process, all the energy sources in the liquids from the first stage gets fed into PHA bacteria bioreactor. And what the PHA bacteria does is that it eats the energy sources and grows PHA bioplastic granules within their cells. And when the cells mature, we simply extract them open and collect the PHA bioplastic granules. And for every 40 tons of food waste, we can create 1 ton of PHAs. At the end of it, we essentially compress the granules into pellets, which we can then sell to plastic manufacturers. Currently, we're working with a plastic manufacturer called TechPack Solutions. They make things like thin film and packaging based in Hamilton. So the two key benefits that we could provide to restaurants is first, sustainable branding. For every one restaurant that we work with, we can offset 50 tons of carbon emissions every single year. And the second thing is that in addition to cheaper collection fees, we also offer them cashback incentives to encourage better sorting of food waste. Now, we make money from two revenue streams. The first is the organic waste collection fees. Of the $12,000 that we collect, roughly 1/3 is distributed to the third-party trucking company, and we pocket roughly $8,000, which we currently feed back into our operations. And from the other end of the revenue stream, we have the output sales, which is combined from the PHA bioplastic sales as well as the fertilizer. And as we progress, the second revenue stream will continue to grow while we continue to lower the first collection fee. Because as we make our research a lot better, we can essentially make more amounts of PHA bioplastics from the same amount of food waste. And combined, we'll generate roughly $12,000 per year from each restaurant from the very beginning. Now, the market that we're targeting is right now only strictly large full-service restaurants, just to be very focused. So in Toronto, there are roughly 700 restaurants that fits our criteria. And as we move up, we're going to go into cities and regions that has organic landfill bans. And that includes New York City, Seattle, as well as now Ontario. And the overall market in North America is over $3 billion for large full-service restaurants. A little bit about our PHA bioplastic granules. It can be made into two different market segment products. First is a lower end, which can be molded into plastic packaging, compostable foodware, as well as compostable bottles. Now, the higher end products we can get into is 3D printing filaments as well as medical applications. For example, if you had a scar that you had to sew up, with PHAs, it would actually biodegrade within your body within 3 weeks. So it has a high price point as well as high quality applications. So currently existing conventional plastics are sold at roughly 50 cents per kilogram. Now PHAs, they're usually sold at $2.60 per kilogram in North America because they are very expensive to produce. However, we can actually enter the market at a slightly lower price point. The reason being is because existing PHA bioplastic manufacturers, they all use feedstock like sugarcane or corn, which is very expensive to purchase in a very large quantity. However, the key difference is that we are actually getting paid to get our feedstock from restaurants. Now, aside from landfills, restaurant food waste can also go into anaerobic digesters or composters. However, the key downfall for them is that they take roughly 1 to 6 months to complete a single cycle, whereas our process only takes 10 days, which means we can produce a higher margin product within a shorter period of time. Now, we currently make sales to customers through direct sales and sales partners. And for our the current companies that we're working with includes Cara Operations, Sodexo, and Compass Group. They're three of the largest food service companies in the world. Specifically with Sodexo, we just entered into a 2-year partnership with them that has phase 1, 2, and 3 of pilot project locations, with phase 2 and phase 3 having multiple sites and all completely paid projects. And with sales partners, these are essentially companies who already sell services to restaurants. Thus, it's very easy for them to upsell our services to their existing customers. Now, we began our company back in 2016, October, and since then we made a lot of fast progress. Includes, we made through rigorous laboratory testing and experimentation, we were actually able to make our first batches of PHA bioplastic granules. And now we're actually scaling up to a larger scale with 60-liter bioreactor tanks, as well as building a small production line. We've also won over $250,000 in equity-free funding, as well as filed our first patent and made 2 pre-sales. So currently, we're raising our micro-seed round of $350,000, of which we already have $160,000 committed, and the round is led by Anthony Lacavera, who's the founder of Win Mobile, with a convertible note. So during this year, May, we're actually going to be scaling up to 1,000-liter bioreactors, and with these 1,000-liter bioreactors, we can begin to get a completely paid project with one restaurant that we can serve. And throughout the rest of this year, we're essentially going to work with our engineering team and do 4 things. So first, file permit applications to build a pilot plant. Second, increase the current conversion rate of our bacteria cultures. Third, upscale our production line. And fourth, attain more pre-sales and as well as LOIs. And all in all, our ultimate goal is in 5 years, this is essentially to serve 2,000 restaurant locations, as well as make PHA bioplastics with a higher quality, being able to be sold at roughly $4,000 per ton. So a little bit about our team. Personally, I finished my master's at U of T when I was only 21 years old. I've also sold over $2 million of POS contracts to a lot of businesses, including restaurants. Caitlin, my co-founder, she's won many awards for her research on bacteria, including Dean's Silver Medal in Science. Our engineering team is also a lot of superstars in them, including Marco Zagrea, who won the first place in the Quebec engineering competition for his fermentation tank designs. And of course, we also have Dr. Roberta Filthorpe, who's already been there since day one, guiding us and also offering us her laboratory space. On our advisory board, we have many experienced professionals, including Shane Harker, who used to be a district manager at Waste Management, and now he runs Rethink Resources, which is a small trucking company who we use to collect our food waste. We also have Christine Tovey, who was a former CTO of Airbus, managing hundreds of thousands of engineers under her. Lastly, we also have John Rothschild, who sits on the board of directors at Cara Operations, the largest full-service restaurant company in Canada, with brands including Milestones, Swiss Chalet, Montana, and most recently the Keg as well. And again, just to summarize, today we're here to ask for any introductions to potential investors, as well as introductions to waste management companies. Now, the reason for waste management companies is because we're planning to co-zone building our pilot plants within an existing landfill, composting facility, or anaerobic digester that any waste management companies may own. So that would actually help us speed up the progress, as well as work with our potential partners for the future. And thank you.
Okay, so now you guys are up. Annette, maybe you can start. Give us what you got, and you got 1 minute unsolicited, so you can say whatever you like.
Oh, awesome. So I don't know. I actually thought that was awesome, and you actually ended up answering all of my questions through your presentation, so it was really thorough. I think initially I was curious as to more how many restaurants you actually need to scale to what you think is your optimum productivity of what you're doing, and also to what point how much can you actually handle, and to the point that you can't scale any further. But that was really my only question.
Benton, you're up.
Hi, Luna. Great presentation. I really love the presentation. You talk. It's a great idea. What you're doing is you're getting people to pay you to take the input feedstock that you need, and then you're also getting people to pay you for the output that you produce. So that's wonderful. What you didn't cover, however, were your costs and what the margins are, right? So once you get up to scale, what are the margins like, and how are you going to make money? You didn't touch upon that. And also for the investment that you're seeking, how are you going to deploy it? What are you going to use it for? And then finally, I've seen you evolve from a proof of concept lab project into what you have right now. So the whole question for your operation is, how quickly can you scale, and what sort of problems are you going to run into? Is it fleet of trucks running throughout the city? Is it being able to move to gigantic vat reactors? So where do you anticipate where the problems are, and where do you need help?
You're up, Gregory.
Congratulations, Luna. I just love your project, and I'll tell you why. I've been for 7 years my previous business was waste management and recycling in France. So I've got a lot of contact for you, but unfortunately in France. If you want to go there, I will be more than happy to share that with you. I've got a few comments, though. The first thing is, in your business model, you want to give a cash back. I think that's a mistake. I think you should insist in something totally different. Two things. The first thing is reporting. If you give reporting, to the restaurants directly with the way you collect and you measure, then you tie them up. That's very French. So what I'm saying by tidying up is like you give them a report. I don't know if you know frog. There's something with
Bullfrog?
yes.
Bullfrog?
So basically, when you give them this, it's like giving cocaine to people. They will never leave you because the reporting, you make them communicate around the reporting, saying, in my restaurant, I'm like super green. The day they tell you go whatever, go, you're too expensive or whatever, you say, oh, it's not an issue, I just unplug the reporting. That's what I did with my client, one left in 7 years, because they can't afford having no more reporting. That's one. Second thing is, consider close the loop. I like what you do with the PHA, but if you think about something that could be used within the restaurants, then you tell them, close the loop, guys, you sell that for more. But listen about the story to your clients. You know, the plates you're using, actually, that's the waste. So in a better way. But I think you can leverage that much more doing that this way. It's a question, but you don't have the right to answer, but we'll talk about that if you want. It's the question of scalability, because this is an amazing idea, but you need to go fast, and not only in Toronto, you should expand like anywhere in the US to start, and maybe to France or Europe at one point. But congratulations, I love the idea.
Perfect, thank you. Can I answer some of them or no? Okay.
All right, so now we're going to go to the crowd. Sorry, I'm yelling. From the crowd, we're going to have over there Tim. So if you guys have a question, put your hand up and Tim will rush over for you.
Test. Hear me? Okay. First of all, I love your idea. Two things. Number one is, if it was costing the restaurants $15,000, you're going down to $12,000. Why so much? You should tighten that up. You don't have to go down to $12,000 for your cost. Number one. And number two, my friend of mine just sold his company, his waste management company. I think it's to Miller. So if you want a connection, we can talk about that.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, right here.
Hi, I think it's a great idea. I was just wondering, how do you maintain the quality for the PHA you're producing as compared to regular manufacturers? As you scale up, you showed some smaller reactors, but I mean, you're intending to increase scale. So how do you intend on maintaining that quality, and what are the sort of problems associated with that?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Go. Yeah, answer.
I can answer? Oh, okay.
Yes,
sorry.
sorry.
I thought you said I can't answer. Okay.
No, only for the advisors. So
Okay.
that way we go quickly.
Okay, yeah. So in regards to the PHAs, we can control it using two ways. First is the microbial cultures that we have. So depending on what species that we select, we can actually dictate what the end products of the PHAs that we make is, right? So that's one thing. Second thing is the parameters which we put the bacteria into. So the bacteria that we have is actually constantly evolving, and we're pushing it to evolve to a certain way that benefits our operation in terms of yielding creating higher yields, as well as creating more consistent qualities of PHAs. So that's something that we're actively working on right now, and I think we'll actively be working on for the next couple of years, especially as we move into higher grades of PHA purity as well.
Okay, good. Next question.
That was a great presentation, first of all. It's a silly question, but is this synthetic biology? And if it is, and building up on the previous question, how quickly can you take your product and like, what's the rate of accelerating the whole cycle is my question. So take your bacteria or however this product works and have it go through like a landfill in a finite amount of time.
It probably wouldn't work in a landfill because it's not in a controlled environment. But as we scale up, though, it's quite easy because all we have to do is increase the size of our bioreactors to aspect ratio and make sure that all the parameters are done correctly. So in terms of speeding up the whole entire process, right now our process is roughly around 8 days. We're pretty confident that we can get it down to around 7 to 6 days in the future, which means that we can then process more food waste within a shorter period of time and also produce more quantities of PHAs. Yeah, and actually, before we move on to the next one, I would actually like to answer his question. Sorry, I skipped him. So in terms of carbon emissions, we definitely have been thinking about it. The only reason why we're not including that in our sales pitch as of now is because even though we realize how big the potential is, a lot of the carbon tax laws right now are still not properly implemented yet. So we might have to wait until next year or so before we can really sort of bring this as a part of our business model. But definitely also comes with scale, right? The more restaurants that we have, the more carbon emission offsets and the more credits we can then sell back to the market.
Okay, great. One more question. Here we go.
I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm interested in the competition. I'm interested in if anyone else is doing it and whether you're actually patenting that process so that when they decide to do it, because I think they will, that you're going to be able to provide them with that kind of direction and be able to benefit from them. And what are they doing now? I realize they're buying it now, but yeah, I'm interested in that
Right.
perspective of it.
So in terms of competition, right now, the only competitor that we have in the world, a commercial competitor, is called Full Cycle Bioplastics, and they're based in California. They started their research back in 2011, but now we're roughly at the same stage as them, where they're also trying to raise money to build a pilot plant as quickly as possible. So we're roughly around the same stage. They also have a patent. We also have filed a provisional patent as well. It's focused on different things. They've taken a sort of a more scientific and accurate approach to doing this, which as they scale up, we know they're going to face a lot of difficulties in terms of their equipment costs because their process is so complicated. Whereas when we designed our technology, we had in mind the scalability aspects. And so we essentially try to design everything the simplest way so that we can get it to pilot scale as soon as possible and then start tweaking the parameters later on as we have a steady stream of revenue. So it'll be interesting to see where we can compete with them.
Well, that's amazing. I think that you're gonna have to build a warehouse and get this stuff rolling real quick. Yeah. So we should talk. Gregory, let's get this ready going. Let's roll. French. We need this in there. We need the French in here. We need to get this rolling. This is. Oui, c'est français.
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is Sodexo's headquarters, as you know, is also in Paris. And the main reason why they're actually interested in us is the full loop solution, because they also have a lot of supply chains where they sell their own units compostable foodware, right? So which is why they really liked our idea where they can essentially recycle their food waste back into compostable foodware that they then use in their own facilities.
In the US, where you should investigate with them, they've got amazing contracts with the army for the food. So it's like massive.
That's awesome. Right, well, we'll get there fast then.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll jump into the next one, and that is Dash MD. Zach, you're up, buddy.
I've been battling the flu for the past week, so bear with me during this presentation. Instead of flowing like a river, it might feel like rush hour on the TTC a little bit. Yeah.
Apparently I'm technology inclined here with a PDF.
That one.
Sorry guys, one sec.
I sent her a PowerPoint version too. Yeah, okay.
I can't get it to stick.
Okay.
You can hear it.
It's already open, so it's okay. That's okay. My name is Zach. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders behind DashMD. And our story begins a number of years ago when I was a student at the University of Waterloo. I was playing Ultimate Frisbee one day, jumped up against a gentleman who was much more athletic than I was, and that promptly resulted in this. That's a fractured leg in about 5 different places. And as you can see from the look on my face, in this particular photo, I was very much enjoying some morphine. And for me, this is where the problems began, because as my nurse was discharging me from the hospital, she was providing me with a lot of instructions surrounding what I was supposed to be doing to managing my care. And I was stressed, tired, and medicated. That went in one ear and right out the other, and as a result, I developed a preventable complication I didn't know I had that progressed to the point that my leg was almost amputated. It was completely unnecessary. Each year in North America, 475,000 patients die as a direct result of preventable complications. If you do the math on that, that translates roughly into 20 jumbo 747 jets falling from the sky every single week. It's crazy. This costs healthcare providers over $45 billion a year. That's just due to revisits and readmissions alone. So the current patient journey is broken. Patients, when they're in the care center, in the hospital, or the doctor's office, receive a lot of support and structure surrounding their care. But as soon as they journey back into their communities, they lose all of that. And that's where patients like me are most vulnerable of falling through the cracks in the healthcare system. And at DashMD, we envision an ideal patient journey. And this is one in which every patient is provided with a mobile personal health manager at the point of care by their care provider. To date, we've helped thousands of Canadians more effectively manage and coordinate care and recovery in a variety of different ways, which I'll just get into in a moment. So how would I have used DashMD in the case of my broken leg? I would have accessed care protocols that were prescribed to me by my doctor and physician that were unique and relevant to me and my needs and vetted by my care provider. I would have been able to manage my symptoms, manage the multiple pain medications I had to take on a daily basis, as well as the physio exercises I had to schedule too. And at the end of that, when I got my cast off and I actually ended up needing a formal physiotherapist in my community, I could have navigated to DashMD's Find Care section to find the physiotherapist that I needed in my community, getting in contact with them, and booked a consult all through DashMD as well. Our business model has 3 tiers to it. Freemium, we're free to care providers, but DashMD comes with advertising. Premium, we turn ads off, there's a per patient download cost. And white labeled, for the most brand conscious care providers, which we provide DashMD as a fully customizable and skinned version of our platform that's unique and specific to their branding needs. We have 2 add-ons associated with those 3 different tiers of DashMD. The first is surveying. Care providers in Canada and the United States are mandated to survey their patients, and they report those patient experience and satisfaction scores to government oversight organizations. They currently do so through paper-based means. There's only 2 major companies that do this surveying in North America. It's incredibly time-consuming. It takes 2 to 3 months to process, and it costs hospitals and care providers about $8 to $9 a survey. It's incredibly expensive. In addition to that, we also provide care providers with donation functionality. What better way to facilitate transfer of donation dollars from happy patients to care providers than by providing those same patients with utility and a useful tool that helps them more effectively manage and coordinate recovery? That's commission-based. The principle behind these 2 different add-ons is that if we can capture patient attention by providing them with something that's useful to more effectively manage their care, then we can collect meaningful data from them and solicit donations between happy patients and care providers. So here's how this works. DashMD is delivered to care providers, by care providers to patients at the point of care, both in hospital settings and primary care facilities. We are able to capture that patient at the point of care through them using DashMD, and in doing so, we're then able to transfer that health data and donation dollars back to the care provider. So the value proposition to patients: recover better, more effectively. For care providers, save time, cut costs, raise funds. So DashMD is a consolidator. We are bringing together a number of core care components that haven't been brought together in the context of healthcare previously. So what does this mean? This means we're assisting patients with education and engagement resources to help them manage and coordinate care and recovery. We help patients find follow-up care and support in their community. We help with data collection and fundraising. No other company is currently doing this in the context of healthcare. They're each operating in their own individual silos, but in our personal experience, that's to the detriment of patients and providers everywhere, because healthcare doesn't exist in silos, it exists in a continuum, and we're bringing these gaps together. So how do we compete? In a variety of different ways. Our freemium model is fairly unique. We haven't seen somebody in the context of healthcare having a model that's similar to this. This allows us to scale into care providers much faster than anybody else, and care providers that traditionally may have been out of reach for different companies that are focused entirely on upfront dollars instead of ad revenue. We also are ecosystem agnostic. So we are live in emergency departments, maternity, surgery. We're launching in cardiology, oncology, and primary care as well. A lot of companies focus on specific environments as opposed to being ecosystem agnostic. Hospitals don't want to partner with one vendor for each specific ecosystem. They want to partner with one vendor that can service all 50 of their different patient populations. We can launch fairly quickly, in actually 2 to 3 months now, which is we've gotten down from 4 to 3 previously, and that's particular to any given hospital. And we also are EMR agnostic, electronic medical record agnostic. It doesn't matter what IT a particular care provider is using. We exist alongside all IT systems and don't get in the way. So we've been getting a little bit of press. We were featured in Hospital News. We were featured in the Journal of mHealth Technology as one of the top 100 companies in digital health last year and this year. And we were also recently featured by the CBC, but they went with a fairly dramatic headline about me almost losing my leg. I didn't have any input on that. That's okay. So this is our traction to date. We have partnerships in place with over 30 hospitals across Canada, in mostly Ontario and British Columbia. We have a major partnership coming down the pipeline with our first government-level organization, one of the LHINs here in Ontario. That's our biggest contract in terms of dollar value as well as patient population size. They service about 775,000 patients here in Ontario alone. We're very excited about that. Fraser Health is our first non-Ontario partnership. They have 13 hospitals in British Columbia. It's also going to be our first remote implementation. We have a working partnership with Medtronic, the world's largest medical device supplier. They're going to be conducting research on DashMD surrounding congestive heart failure patients later this year. Very excited about that. And today, not on this slide because it's so fresh and new, I'm very excited to announce that we are actually finalizing our first U.S. partnership in Florida with a 500 physician group in primary care, which we're very excited about. This is our team. We bring together a cross-pollination of skill sets, combining business, legal, design, and engineering expertise. Our advisors are also the ones that are really there pushing us forward every single day. They include former hospital CEOs, former ministers of health, and the former executive director of Boston, Harvard, and Yale Medical. These are our financials. We booked 40,000 in revenue last year. We're projecting 465,000 this year, so just over 10x. 250 of that is in the process of being booked right now, so we're likely going to overshoot these projections. The main thing to take away from these is that as revenue scales up, care providers also scales up. The main function of revenue when we talk to care providers is a per patient download cost, as I said earlier in our business model. It typically ranges from $4 to $25 depending on the size of the care provider organization that we're talking about. As an example, a private practice plastic surgeon may see a couple hundred patients a year, but some emergency departments see hundreds of thousands. So that pricing is variable depending on the size of the organization that we're referring to. We're currently raising a $500,000 seed round. This is 75% full at this point in time, and we're looking at the likely situation of an oversubscription scenario because we're currently in due diligence with a number of investors and investment groups. Current investors include Niagara Angel Network, Peterborough Regional Angel Network, the Ontario Centers of Excellence, as well as a number of individual angels that we're currently working with today. The money is going to be used for a couple different things, really two main buckets. The first is growth and scale. There's demand for what we are building, and we want to use these funds to help scale DashMD across North America. We've proven that we have the capability to do that. We're doing it today. We want to add fuel to the fire to expand our growth. The second is build our team. There's a lot of monetization that we want to tap into through DashMD, as well as a lot of value that we want to add to patients moving forward. And we want to hire additional engineering support to allow us to do that as well. Together, we can connect the dots in healthcare. Thank you.
Do you want to kick it off?
So let me lead. Zach, great presentation. So it occurs to me that there's a large patient demographic that would be especially well served by this, and that's the seniors and the aged population. That came to my mind as you were talking about Florida as one of your markets, right? And in fact, family caregivers within the family unit would be pushing for the adoption of this because they want to make sure that their parents or their relatives sort of follow the treatment protocol, and they want to be notified when the patient doesn't follow that protocol. And you didn't touch upon whether or not that's a feature of your current product, but this would be something that would be especially helpful in getting into the market.
Absolutely.
Gregory?
So thank you for the presentation. I like the cause, but I've got some concern with, one, the business model. And raising the point of donation in the business model, for me, doesn't make sense. And no offense in that, it's just maybe the French way, but I don't get that because I don't see a sustainability whenever we talk about donation. And whenever people are complaining with the cost all the time about medical stuff, and even more in North America. Second thing is, I think there's a lot of things to work around the sales, and you mentioned some partnership with people. To maintain a partnership and to develop a partnership, it requires a lot of money, and people need to see tangible results right away. So my concern with that is, first, you're gonna need a lot of money to to create the relationship, to maintain the relationship. And my last comment is about, you should definitely consider to team up with some other people because, with IGAN, the VC I'm working with right now, we are in the healthcare. What I see is there's so many things happening that all this space is pretty stuck. Like there's a lot of people getting into this world. So my point is just to join. I don't know if you know, one of the company we have invested in is Think Research. I don't know if you heard about them. No, you're not. After. But the point is the way they've developed, now they've got 1,000 hospitals in Canada. And I think that expanding them, for their expansion in the US, they are facing the same kind of issues. So they are teaming up. And I think they're teaming up in a strong way, meaning you team with them up and you follow that quite strongly. That's, for me, the only way to make it. And that's my concerns.
Okay. Annette?
So first of all, great presentation. I thought, I see the usefulness of the utility. I think I too had some observations on the business model. The first being is just a macro trend where we see is just more, I think, money, especially when in healthcare tech's going more towards prevention than treatment. And I thought this was an interesting utility as kind of treatment after the fact, but wondered if you thought of more of a holistic use for the platform being more holistic health from prevention to treatment, because I think that's where the trend's going, and there's only going to be a few winners out of that. I do see there's a lot of clutter in this space, and I'm curious because I'm not an expert in this space. You're far more an expert than I am, but we see what the pharmaceutical companies are doing, or even the pharmacists themselves is trying to get ahead of the healthcare providers in owning that patient treatment space is something we're watching. Again, with kind of self-management of your treatment, I don't, do due diligence on the liability with insurance companies. Don't know. It's just something I would watch. And I was just interested on, you talked about advertising and that. I mean, and what we see, especially for advertising in these types of apps, is there is an appetite from drug companies, obviously, to sponsor that and be in front of the patients. One, they have diminishing budgets, and two, they've come under a lot of scrutiny lately about actually direct to patients through these types of apps that are designed to actually provide a service for patients. So that's just a watch out if you're thinking of that as a revenue stream, because it's coming under a lot of scrutiny, and same as obviously data collection, healthcare. So those are all opportunities. It's just you have to tread very carefully in that space.
Okay, thank you guys. All right, do we have any questions? Any questions from the audience?
Thank you. I think it's really great, and I'm glad you have a lot of media coverage, but I was kind of wondering, you said that a lot of your competitors have less features than your app. I don't know if you have anything in place so that your competitors can't develop those features, and I was hoping you could speak a bit more on your competitors and how they're not doing the freemium model and how you guys really differentiate yourself, and I guess why the investors should invest. Yeah.
Sure. So I think there's a couple different components to that answer, and I could be here for an hour, but I'll try and be as brief as I can. So first of all, as a software company, your competitors can develop the features that you have tomorrow. That's not something that's keeping us ahead of the curve. It's just something that is currently the case. We haven't seen that freemium model before in the context of healthcare, because typically the entry points to get into healthcare and actually get your foot in the door in the hospital, the sales cycle is long and you burn a lot of cash getting to that point. The objective behind our freemium model has been previously to establish a footprint fast, to get the attention of larger organizations like Medtronic and like some government level organizations like the local health integration networks that we're currently working with, which can then tap us into real contracts and much larger revenue streams moving forward with those system levels of agreements. Like Medtronic sells into thousands of hospitals every single day. They're the perfect strategic partner for us moving forward. In terms of why investors should invest, that's an interesting question. I would say a lot of companies in the context of healthcare like to just go with the flow and they adapt to the system as opposed to adapting themselves. We hustle. Every single step that we've made, every single rung on the ladder that we've climbed to get to where we are today is a direct result of hustling like nobody else has in the context of healthcare. All of the advisors that we've made, LinkedIn cold calls. The way that we hooked up with Medtronic, I sent the CEO a cold email on LinkedIn and he got back to me. So I firmly believe that sales is a competitive advantage. There might be people that disagree with me on that in this room, and we have an incredible sales team, and I'm a part of it, and I'm selling every single day. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Hi, I'm just wondering, is this an app and a website, or is it just the app in itself?
DashMD is a mobile platform. It will have a web component to it moving forward for both patients and care providers, but right now it is a mobile-first platform.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Hi, Zach. Thanks for the presentation. I had a chance to talk to your CTO in the session. I guess I'd just like to reiterate one of the points Annette made. I think there is a pretty huge opportunity when it comes to preventative medicine.
Yes.
And as I kind of get near the 40 age, I'm starting to look at it myself. A lot of my friends are starting to kind of look into that space. So I'm just kind of looking at things like Watson being trained to be a doctor. Plus I hear an AI has passed the medical school exam in China. So I think there's something huge here. It's just whoever tries to figure out how to get there first. Yeah, it's more of a comment than an actual question. But
No, I'm glad you brought up Annette's point. So we aren't just for aftercare. DashMD is distributed to patients the second their interaction with the healthcare system begins. So if you come to your doctor's office, or perhaps you're an expectant mother, the second you have that initial consult or pre-surgical consult, your interaction with DashMD as well as the healthcare system is then beginning. We're taking a very holistic approach to how we assist patients. So when you're using our Find Care section as an example, it's not just medical-related support in your community like physiotherapists or dentists. It's also adult day programs and meal programs. Some of the care providers we're speaking with want to import alcohol cessation programs as well as smoking cessation programs. So it's not just focusing on one's interaction with the hospital in a very medical context. It's also looking beyond that initial interaction and expanding from there. That's as a result of direct feedback that we've gotten from patients and the providers that we work with on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for that question.
Hi, how are you? Great presentation and congrats on your traction. Two things. First of all, when you get home, have some chicken soup.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you using this for your cold at all? And secondly, the young lady there already mentioned it. How do you protect user data here? How is data governance handled here?
Yeah, great question. So before focusing on DashMD full-time, I was a student at Osgoode Hall Law School, so liability is ingrained in my brain. It's a sickness. So the way that we've positioned ourselves somewhat uniquely, and the reason that we've been able to establish a footprint fairly quickly, I think, in the context of healthcare, is that we currently don't collect, track, manage, or store any personal health information on patients using our platform. The reason we've done that is because when we go into a hospital, they have about 100 questions surrounding what we do. If we touched personal health information, it would be 1,000. And it would also expand, and extend rather, I should say, the implementation timeline with the care providers we're currently working with. So we take the frog approach to complexity. If you throw a frog into a boiling pot of water, it's going to jump right out. If you turn up the heat slowly, it's going to stay in that pot. So that's the approach we take to complexity. So right now, we don't collect personal health information, but the objective moving forward with the care providers we work with is to build out, as I said, a provider-facing platform that's going to allow them to track their patients more effectively, which incorporates personal health information.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. That was awesome. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, how many people here are entrepreneurs? Everybody? Come on, everybody's got to be one, right? How many people have started a business recently, or going to start a business, or have an idea, or they want to talk about something they've done? Awesome. So right now we're going to do a 30-second elevator pitch. So everybody, well, not everybody, sorry, well, hold on. We're going to take 5 companies, or 5 people come up to the front. You have 30 seconds to talk about your business. So 5 people, make your way up. I won't handpick you, just come on up. Come on, you're gonna have to do this at some point in time in your life, which is do something crazy. So this isn't really crazy, but. All right, that's good, that's good. All right, we got 5, yeah, line up. All right, so here's the deal, you got 30 seconds. You need to tell your name, what the business is, and then I'm gonna cut you off. All right, here we go, 30 seconds.
Hi everyone, I'm Ruben Cohen. That's my business partner, Randy Clemens. We're the founders of CoinLaunch. We created a platform that allows people to create their own crypto assets. We launched in October. We've seen tremendous growth. Our pipeline in 4.5 months just hit $1 billion. We allow anyone to essentially raise capital through cryptocurrency at coinlaunch.co.
And your name is?
I'm Ruben.
All right, that was the fastest 30 seconds. You're breaking records here. All right, you're up.
Hi, my name is Adil Khan. I'm the founder at Experian Labs, and my business is focused on making a Spotify for digital arts. And this is a problem I noticed when I go to events like Comic-Con, where a lot of other events where artists show up. And a lot of artists I talk to, they're making the art on the computer, but they're actually printing it and then selling it. So my secret sauce is to use emotion AI as in actually reading facial expressions. There's a couple other things.
Your name is?
Experian Labs, Adil Khan. Check it out.
All right, thank you. You're up.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Dmitro, originally from Ukraine. I do not have a great business idea here, but the reason I'm here, I would like to share the opportunity to expand and develop solar power in the country with the high demand and with the great financial benefits. There's a saying by Seneca that I really like. Luck happens when opportunity meets with preparation. I'm your opportunity. Opportunity for those who are prepared to make the social responsible investment into the pure and clean energy. Thank you. Dmitro.
Awesome. All right, you're up.
Hi there, I'm Newton, founder of MeetScribe. So at work, we spend a lot of time in meetings, and these meetings can be very unproductive. The information being discussed is not immediately shared and summarized with the entire team. So we have built an AI meeting assistant to target this precisely. It's called MeetScribe. It's a web application that's accessible by anyone, that's completely platform agnostic, and you can start using it today. Thank you.
Your name is?
Newton.
Awesome. You guys are breaking the 25-second rule. It's good. All right, you're up.
Hi everyone, my name's Haley. We're pre-launch, but I noticed no other woman came up here, so I still wanted to come up. We're launching an organization, it's called GH90, and it's basically a digital career platform that aims to connect people to jobs and opportunities in the global health sector. So one of the first things we're doing is we're going in and we're interviewing and featuring different companies in the global health sector, and we're creating a bunch of company profile pages so that we have an online repository of different organizations. I'm Haley.
Thank you, thank you. You're up.
Hi, my name is Chansa from a Toronto-based startup called Scene, S-E-E-N, and we've built an iOS app that's built on the premise, why should what you're exposed to be limited to who you know? So on our platform, you can follow people, you follow interests, and cities that you've lived in, and you can discover and share events through mobile photos and videos by leveraging geotags. And it's available free in the App Store, S-E-E-N, Scene. Thank you. Chansa.
Okay, perfect. Oh, wait, one more. All right. Let's go.
Hi there. I'm Daniel. I'm currently a manager at one of the big banks, and one of the main pain points of banks is sending money internationally. It costs a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, so I'm looking to develop a company that sends anyone's money anywhere around the world instantly for free. So I'm looking to talk to a couple of people, and I'm looking specifically to use blockchain to circumvent the bank network. Daniel.
Okay. Last but not least.
Hi, my name is Rob Furtado. I'm the founder of CourseCompare.ca. We are Canada's first online marketplace for tech education. We've brought together hundreds of different courses in emerging tech fields from nearly now 50 providers, colleges, universities, MOOCs, onto one platform, and we use a simple algorithm to match you with the course that's right for you based on a couple of unique characteristics. CourseCompare.ca. Rob Furtado would love to chat.
Awesome. Thank you. You stole my line. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to jump into our last pitch, and that is Xmatic. I have mad skills.
Whoa. Oh, it's internet.
I've never had so many technical difficulties. Zero.
All right. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good? It's good. My name is Nima. I'm the founder and CEO of Xmatic. And clickers don't work either. All right. I'm joined by an amazing group of multidisciplinarians, people who can pretty much take any idea and turn it into a reality. Myself, I've worked for companies like Tesla, Honda, Magna for 10 years of experience with automotive sector, and I'm joined by Rob, CTO, who's an ex-Bombardier engineer, and Human, our PhD in machine learning and AI. But I'm here to talk about self-driving. But before I do, I'd like to give you guys a quick crash course on what self-driving looks like, levels of autonomy. So in order to understand self-driving, you have to understand that that transition of man and machine doesn't happen in a binary way. It's a gradual transition. And in order to quantify that, we've come up with the levels of autonomy. It's not our system, but it exists by SAE. So level 1 is basically what you have in your modern cars as active cruise control. Gas and brake. It slows down the car if the car in front of you slows down. And then you've got level 2. This is what you find in a Tesla or in a Mercedes. And that's basically lane keeping assistance plus gas and brake. But you got to be kind of ready to take over the job of driving immediately. And then you got level 3. That's the system we're talking about. It's roughly the same thing as level 2, but it works for city and highway. Still no navigational turns, but gives you about 3 seconds of warning before you have to engage the task of driving if the system needs you to. And then you've got level 4. And in level 4, it's pretty much full self-driving. You put in where you want to go, except that the human still needs to be present and ready to take over within, again, a set warning time. And then you've got level 5, fully autonomous cars. You put in where you want to go, and the person doesn't even have to be in the car. So it could really not have a steering wheel. Okay, and we're talking about level 3. So self-driving is already here, and yet when you look out on the roads, you don't see a whole lot of self-driving cars. Now that's partly because the only way to get a self-driving car is for you to go out and buy, say, a Tesla or a Mercedes or a Volvo or other luxury brand vehicles. And while these cars, they cost around $120,000 a piece, the average car on the road costs about $14,000. So that's a big barrier. But besides that, if you set aside cost, even if from today, every single car manufactured was somehow level 3, level 4 autonomous, it would still take about 17 years for that trickle of new cars into the market to refresh the entire fleet. So how do you get self-driving to the masses now? We've got a product. It's called Lane Cruise. Lane Cruise is an aftermarket add-on kit that will transform any regular car into a level 3 self-driving car. What you're watching is a 2012 Honda Civic, self-driving at the same level as a Tesla Model S. When you separate the concept of car from autonomy, you're able to massively shortcut the path to the market. Think about it. 99.9% of a car's parts between a self-driving car and a manual car are the same. So why would you chuck away the entire car instead of just adding the brains? That's exactly what Lane Cruise does. So Lane Cruise is made up of a couple of components. You've got some camera unit that you mount in the top of your windshield, a steering and pedal actuator you mount to your car, and a brain box that goes underneath the driver's seat. That's your processing unit. But we also give you this amazing UI and an uplink capability. Why? Because the data mining and analytics capabilities that affords you right on board massively outweighs even the benefits of self-driving itself. Advertising companies, governments, insurance, all the data you could imagine, contextualized for the moment. And what did the person do in reaction to them? It's incredible the kind of safety elements you can add. Just Tesla Pilot alone, Tesla's autopilot, reduces accidents by 40%. So imagine that with any car you already have. I get a question about Google a lot. And before you throw Tesla and Google at me, I'd like to highlight the fact that the market is made up of several segments. It's not just autonomy, period. You've got 3 subsegments. You got auto OEMs, Hondas and Teslas of the world, trying to bring level 2, level 3 autonomy to their next newest cars. Price of admission here, buy a new car. Great. And then you've got the Googles and Ubers of the world trying to bring full autonomy to the market. Amazing stuff. Only problem, each car probably costs about $500,000. So it's not very likely that you'll be able to get that car for yourself, but maybe access it as a service. That leaves a giant market of cars already on the road, fully capable of being upgraded, almost entirely untouched, except for us and Kamayai. So how big is that market? Even if you project a quite slow transition curve, or I should say steep transition curve, from existing fleet for OEMs to bring on board new tech, just by 2025, we're talking about 440 million vehicles on the road just in North America no tech on board. None of this stuff. So there's millions of cars on the road, and I'm not even talking about trucks and fleets yet. So how do we differ from our competition? So Come.ai is another company down in San Francisco that does something similar. They do it using a cell phone solution. The only issue is that they can't tap the vast majority of cars on the road because they have a hack system. What we call a no-hack approach is our difference. We don't hack into your car. We don't require anything special in your car. As long as your car has 2 pedals and a steering wheel. I think that covers about most of them, right? Theirs is a hack system, requires that the car comes with some tech on board and they enhance your car. We're talking about a kit that works on whatever car you've got. So how do we make money? There's 2 aspects to it. So there's obviously the first aspect of actually making the kit, selling it, and making a profit. But that's not where it ends. It's actually kind of where it begins. Because once we have that hardware in your car, we can sell software upgrades and recurring revenue that comes from that. Imagine cars being able to warn each other of the traffic ahead. Cars being able to tell you what other things other cars have experienced in this place. Imagine advertisers knowing where the most congestion and where the most eyeballs are. Imagine governments knowing who's using HOV lanes inappropriately. And the applications that come with that. All the apps you want in your car, and we have the base system that makes it happen. So some of the markets that we're after are fleets. So those are businesses that operate thousands of vehicles. Farmers Insurance, auto parts. These companies operate huge fleets of vehicles that they can't just renew and go out and buy a whole brand new set of. Now they can transition them to an autonomous level 3 car without having to exchange their cars. And then you've got resales through companies that can do consumer sales and installation for us, like Canadian Tire that has a garage, or Mr. Lube. And those will become our secondary sources of business. And thirdly, we like to directly sell our product to those who want to install it themselves. So how do we get here? We started this project in February of 2016. It's been 2 years, and we've gotten a lot of prototyping done. So to this point, basically, we have what you would call a candidate for release in terms of design. And we're looking at a City of Toronto pilot, appropriately in this building, where City of Toronto will be using our system in their fleet of cars, test piloting the project to actually have it on city vehicles. And that's where the raising of funds go in. So if I can leave you with a thought. Tesla can only make as many self-driving cars as they can make cars. Xmatic doesn't have that limitation because we can go on any car. And so I know everyone's looking for that big opportunity, that 1000x opportunity. But what better company and candidate? And a company started by Tesla and Google employees looking at a market 1,000 times that of Teslas or Google's. Thank you. Sure.
Gregory?
Thank you, Nima. Great presentation. I've got a few comments. I love the idea, but market-wise, I think you should talk a bit more about segmentation, because when you explain the average price of a car, you said the Teslas are around 120,000, and this is definitely not what you target. And you said on the other side, the average is $12,000 cars. Your solution is 4,000. It's a third of the car, which means that for me, there's a strategy that I would love to see here. When you said it's a tool, you said a toolkit like ready to go, turnkey, sorry, it's a turnkey kits. I think there is definitely a strategy that you should insist in the financing, because if I buy a car, $12,000, which is an average, it means it costs me quite a lot of money. If I had to add $3,000 to $4,000, even though I love the product, if you don't suggest something to the reseller to finance it, I will never be able to pay a third of my car just to get something that could be seen as a fancy thing to start. That's my first comment. My other comment is I think you should be very aggressive into your raising strategy because the market is big. I understand that. I would love Canada to win this war, and I would like you to win this war. But talking about 2019 for a Series A, I would see something totally different personally. You should raise maybe $3 to $4 million right away and make sure that you get spread out very strongly in the main location because you are in the consumer goods market. People need to see the lane crews in all the dealership very quickly. And for me, it's too slow. That's it.
Annette?
So first of all, I love these types of presentations because it's super cool and it's just amazing to see that type of innovation. A couple similar comments. I think one, I actually, liked where you're thinking the business model around fleet and transportation. I actually think that's an area you could probably win against the big auto guys who are starting to think that way and versus just direct to consumers. And would love for you guys, to see how big you can think about overall just people moving in transportation beyond cars. Because I think when we think of autonomous, we always think of cars, but we think of the future of transportation. I think as cities become more congested, we're going to be thinking bigger than just cars and highways in the near future. I'd be curious to see more research around consumer demand and consumer preferences, and on the segmentation, just a little bit more of what the people are looking for with regards to a product like that. And would love to see more about as you think about, what would be your approach to marketing? What could be some of the potential pitfalls as far as consumer needs, as far as training, installation, Q&A, safety? Something to think about again is just how are things like insurance companies and the big auto companies going to react to, one, a device installed in their vehicles? What controls will they eventually implement to maybe prevent that? And that's it. That's super cool.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. All right, so what questions do we have from the audience? Oh, Benton, oh my God, I was so fast to get out the questions. Benton, get in there, buddy, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So, Nima, I've got a presentation tip for you. The presentation started off slowly, right? You didn't nail the problem that you were trying to solve. Instead, you told us about your team, right? That's a bad way to proceed. And then it felt professorial. You started to school us about what L1 was, L2, L3. I don't care about L4 and L5. You're not even going there, right? So it's almost irrelevant to the presentation, right? You want to get to the meat of the problem that you're trying to solve. And then what you also didn't bring out enough was what's the benefit to the buyer, which in this case would be the consumer driver or possibly the fleet operators, right? Buried in your presentation was the fact that accidents will be reduced by 40%. That's huge, right? That should be in big, bold headlines in your pitch. That should be the reason why consumers will want your technology, want your solution, right? But I agree with you. The cost of $4,000 for a $12,000 or $15,000 car doesn't make that much sense to me. Instead, I would advise you to really sort of focus on the semis, the tractor trailers, because here you've got a dedicated driver force driving on the highways day in, day out, right? And if you can reduce accidents by 40%, that's huge, right? And the drivers, especially for large fleets, may not be the ones making that spending decision. It would be the fleet operators, right? That is a segmentation that I think that you should focus on. Then you're not looking at this imbalance between the $4,000 cost versus a $15,000 car, right? Now, you also did mention, or you had on your slide, Aviva, but you didn't talk about insurance, right? Maybe you didn't have time to get into it, but that could be another benefit. If you were actually working with insurance providers on some sort of a discount, so that if you had this kind of technology in your car and accidents were reduced, then you would get a lower rate. Another incentive for people to adopt your solution.
That's why Aviva is partnering with us on City of Toronto.
I guessed that, but you didn't touch upon it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. That was good. And sorry, Benton, I didn't mean to do that. Who has questions? Who has questions? Sorry. Oh, there we go.
Hello. Hi. Very cool that you showed a working prototype. I have a question about your competitor. So Comma AI is doing a similar thing you mentioned, but their greatest asset is the data they have, which they collect through their mobile app. So they have a massive training set, which is what is useful in self-driving cars. So I'm wondering, A, how are you going to solve that problem? How are you going to collect data? And the second problem is related to regulation. So there was big kerfuffle about how Comma AI was going to get shut down because they were giving these things away, or they were letting people download them and put them in their cars, or they were going to sell them. And then they decided to just give them away open source. So they gave away all the tech open source, right? So the question is, how are you going to solve that problem, right? They're still going to be able to make money by selling software services through their application. How are you going to solve that problem?
Right. So George is a friend, and we've had great debates about this. So the way our business is different than Comma AI's, and I'm really glad that you have such good depth about Comma AI. But just to give some background, Comma AI is basically a software-focused solution, and their solution works on cars that have basically LCAS, which is what we call electronic control of your car, already built in. Okay. A vast number of cars, about 96%, do not have that. So they cannot be accessed digitally. That is, unfortunately, a big problem that he cannot address with that solution, which is called a hack solution, where you tap into the car's electronics and you override its internal commands. What we're doing is external. We actually give you actuators that you mount to your car, and that can work on any car or any truck or any bus. It doesn't really matter. And that gives us great leverage in adaptability, but it also gives you a second advantage, and that's exactly that legal problem. The reason he couldn't sell that system legally is because now when you hack into a car system, you need the buy-in of an OEM because you're altering the vehicle's original intended purpose. We are not. We are doing this by controlling the car the same way you do, by rotating the steering wheel and pressing the pedals, how it was designed to be controlled. And so that gives us a secondary advantage. And to kind of come back to Comma AI wants to buy our hardware and put it into their system because that gives them access to a much wider set of cars. And to sort of address the problem with data, and you are quite correct in noting that data is very important in trying to teach a machine learning algorithm, but you don't actually need a whole lot of data if you quite understand how machine learning works, which is averaging aggregate data when it does the training set. So what you need is a deep enough network that can actually understand what driving is. And you can't run a really deep network on a cell phone. That's the problem, where he does not have enough processing power. We give you the equivalent of a high-end computer with our kit. And that gives us the ability to leverage a much deeper network, which requires less data in order to understand what the road is. I know that's a long answer. Sorry.
No, that was good. That was good. Any other questions? Oh, sorry. Someone. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the same principle that applies if you buy a Tesla. Tesla is not liable if you get into an accident using autopilot. That's because it's a level 2 system at this time. And we're going to market it as a level 2 system until as such time as regulation sort of changes around level 3, and that's still coming. So as long as the driver is there and they're able to monitor, they're the ones liable. So you're able to take over the system at any time, and it will give you control back.
Okay, question over there.
Yeah. Hi, I liked your presentation. I think I saw you at Venture Lab before. Anyways, look from a different perspective. I use Wheel-Trans. I use this. 10 to 12% of the population has some sort of disability. We don't care about the $12,000 for the car. We would buy a used van or a taxi car cab in there for $2,000 to $4,000, and the difference of $150 a month, getting that, putting your product on it, which is transferable to the next vehicle, especially if you have a family, it actually makes sense. inside there. So that's a market you should look at inside there.
Yeah. And actually, that's a great point to come back to the $14,000. The reason I state that average is not to say that we're going after folks who have $14,000 cars. We're saying that the average person cannot afford a new Tesla. That's the point I'm trying to make there. We're going after the folks who actually have $35,000, $40,000 cars. Okay, and for them, a $3,000, $4,000 upgrade ain't a whole lot. But more importantly, it's the fact that we are going to offer a lease type of product where you can actually come in, pay $150, $100 a month, and have the kit free installed and play it over the lifetime. And more importantly, when it comes to fleets, again, fleets are operating massive costs on operation because of accidents, because of the fact that they got to actually maintain a fairly high-end vehicle when it comes to their fleet. So the reduction in cost for a fleet is monumental, and you've touched on it. And I probably haven't done it good of a justice to actually make that point. But it's not about, a lot of people think self-driving is a technical problem. It's not. It's a value proposition problem. Google already has a fully self-driving car, right? $500,000. Why can't we see it on the roads? Because nobody's willing to pay $500,000 for a car. So where is the value chain where you can actually make a product that's valuable and people will want it if the operating conditions are bound right? And it's at level 3 right now, right?
Okay, I like it. Thank you very much, Nima.
I do have a question.
Sorry. All right, go ahead. We'll go quick.
So, first of all, my apologies. I'm not a public speaker, but I do have a couple concerns with your premises. So your premise was that autonomous cars are expensive, and they're currently level 3, right? So that's today. So first of all, Waymo, it has level 4 in Arizona right now. So I'm not sure how you would feel about this. And then being expensive, all new technology is expensive at first until they get adoption, until they get the manufacturing rate, until the prices drop. So let's say 10, 15 years from now, that cost has dropped dramatically. And now electric cars are much more in market. Why would a consumer want to be buying these external parts to add to their cars when now autonomous cars are much more relevant and in market, right? And then I have many more other concerns, but I'm stuttering and time's passing by. So could you let me know, for example, then how long do you see this being a viable company, let's say 10, 15 years down the line?
Right. So it's a viable. It's a viable concern, absolutely. And I don't imagine that we were going to be in the aftermarket retrofit kit for a very long time. But let me preface that with two important things. Would you chuck away most of your house in order to put in a new conditioning system? Would you chuck away most of your belongings because you wanted an upgraded one? And even if you did do that, wouldn't that leave a giant problem of waste? You already have a transmission in your car. You already have tires in your car. Why are you rebuying all these damn parts? And more importantly, the car as a technological achievement is starting to break down over the years. It will start to become more and more modularized. And that's very important because when you go into a dealer, even right now, if you want to buy the Tesla add-on autopilot, it's still a $5,000 ad. You're still buying a modular system. You're just only having the choice when you buy it. We're giving you the choice after you've bought it. And that's very important. And when it comes back to the timing, I'd like to just time out one thing to keep in mind. There's 320 million cars in North America right now, right? Annual production, 16 million. Percentage of annual production that has level 3 on board, 0.1%. So when it comes to the fact that even if from today I had 17 million cars yearly production, it would still take a long time to refresh the 320 million that are already on the road. It's a very slow moving market. And now I haven't even talked about China. I haven't even talked about India. I haven't talked about the rest of the world. And all of that momentum that's built into the system can be serviced in a different way, except throwing away your car, getting a new one.
So you can't throw away your car. So we're going to actually have to bump on this one. You can meet him in the back up top there and have a chat with him. Sorry. Thank you. They're all good questions. All right, so we're going to move on to our next section here. And I'm going to ask, let me pull it up here. Annette to come up and speak to us about AIO.
So what I didn't want to do is have to follow all that amazing innovation presentations. First of all, I just want to say that what everybody's doing in this room tonight is really super important, and thank you for doing that. I've personally had an amazing time being part of it. I'm married to an entrepreneur. He's going to be so thankful tonight that I got this all out of my system before I got home. So my name is Annette Waring. I'm on the board of directors for Angels Investors Ontario. I am slightly different than my other board members, not just because I'm female, but also because I don't own a suit. Unlike my counterparts, I come from the wacky world of advertising and marketing. I've been on the board for about a year, and I also chair our recruitment and marketing committee. I was asked just to spend a few minutes, and I promise just a few minutes, introducing you to some of the things that AIO does for angel investors, but also for Canadian entrepreneurs. I cheated a little bit. I've got some PowerPoint, but we've also got a video which is going to do a much better job than I can do as well. You're going to have to bear with me because this is the first time I've presented this presentation. And work this clicker. Nope. Yep, that's perfect. So I'll just click at him. So what is an angel investor? So angel investing goes so much beyond simply providing funds for startup ventures. These are accredited investors, and they're often former entrepreneurs like many of you, or business professionals with high net value worth. But one of the reasons I actually did join the board is angels often see investing as a way to give back to the community, a way to shape the economy, Canada's economy for the future, and that's super important. They see angel investing as a long-term relationship, and unlike VCs, they're often actively involved with the startups they invest in for a very long time. So it's an angel group. It's a group of angels, but they've come together for many great reasons. So an angel group will come together, they'll mitigate risks, they'll save time, it allows them to attract better investment opportunities, and it also really allows them to have this supportive environment that can develop best practices in due diligence, in investing and mentoring a lot of the startups. Our organization, Angel Investors Ontario, has a really simple but I think powerful mission, and it's really about investing in an ecosystem to build prosperity, to create jobs, and to strengthen communities in Ontario. There are 13 groups in Ontario. I'm not going to go through them all. You can see them there. They're all amazing. What do we do as a group? We offer several great services, virtual joint screenings and pitches. It gives entrepreneurs the opportunity to get together in front of many groups at a single time instead of taking all that wasted time and getting in their cars and going from group to group. So, I think as Jeffrey started to say, we want them to spend time building their business, not driving down the 401 to try to keep chasing money. We provide resources and tools, everything for group managers to have best practices of due diligence, screening, salary information. We hold events, panels, seminars, opportunity for entrepreneurs to pitch in front of groups of investors. And finally, we provide marketing and communication support for our groups. Since 2007, some amazing stats for AIO. I think the two that stick out for me, over $300 billion has been invested in Canadian entrepreneurs from angels, and they've created over 10,000 jobs, which I think is outstanding. I think is what we've seen today. Not a surprise in the digital economy that over 65% of that money has gone into digital media and information and communications technology, but also significant investment in advanced healthcare technologies and green energy. We also support entrepreneurs. There's many tools on the website, from investment ready quiz, angel money capability, so entrepreneurs can do a lot of pre-screening and get themselves ready before they meet an angel investor, video series on the art of the pitch, so many tools to help. Yep, and then the next slide, a very good-looking team at AO under the leadership of Jeffrey Steiner, the president and CEO. The next, I think, is a beautiful shot of the board under the leadership of Blake Whitkin. And lastly, just high level, there's, right now there's a proposed partnership on the table between AIO, Ontario Centers of Excellence, and a Chinese venture capital company that would create a agency seed capital fund that would accelerate company penetration into China, but also help angel investors diversify their portfolio and mitigate some portfolio risk. So that in 3 minutes is AIO, and I believe we have a short video to share with you. Or not. I wouldn't worry about it.
My technical skills apparently have depleted.
Okay. Thank you very much, Annette. That was awesome. I think that gave everybody a good view into how the angel world works and where the AIO starts into this. There may be, but my technical skills are lacking this today for some reason. So we're going to miss that video part. We can email it out if you like, though, but thank you very much. Sorry. So next we're going to have Philip Long come up. It's Philip. Philip, there he is.
How you guys doing? I'm just here. I'm going to introduce a panel. It's going to start a bit of a discussion. So as I read your names, perhaps come onto the floor here. Angelo DeLuca. Well, come on down. Angelo is a multiple angel investor and a mentor. His background includes an engineering foundation and entrepreneurship. He's co-founded a technology company, had a successful exit. He was part of a federal funding program to assist SMEs in their growth. Recently, he became a member of the York Angel Investor, and has had extensive experience in assisting companies with their growth. Welcome. Second, Ruben Cohen. You've heard the 30-second pitch. I'll say a few more words and hopefully not any longer period of time. He's the founder and CEO of CoinLaunch. He was also the founder of Autonomy, Airvestor, a successful entrepreneur, an active thought leader. Ruben's an expert commentator, contributor, and writer. He's raised over $120 million for his previous company, and companies he's mentored have raised over $500 million and are worth several billion in market cap. So he, as well, is probably a good guy to know. And Justin Hartzman is also coming down. He's the co-founder and CEO of Needles, University of Western business grad. He's an internet visionary that has pioneered many markets. Justin and his team owns and manages a large portfolio of websites and businesses. These fall into the B2B, B2C, and customer content spaces. He's raised about $2.5 million for his companies. And this week. So this is going to be your panel. I think they're going to speak about raising capital, learning about how to start your business, getting going.
I like it. Thank you very much. Thanks, Phil. All right, guys. So what we wanted to do today was we're trying something a little bit different. We had the 3 pitches, and we thought, well, since we're giving a little information from AIO and getting you guys a little bit more, I guess, on the educated side on how this all works, we thought, why don't we bring together a nice little panel of some guys and ladies. Next time, we're going to build this in bigger. We're going to keep making this grow, but be able to bring in some angels and the guys that have raised some money over the last period of time and find out how did they do this, and get you guys involved to ask some questions at the same time. So maybe the first question I want to jump out and ask is, Ruben, because you've done this from a long past and you've worked your way through and generating dollars for your business, what's one thing that you found was kind of your nugget that got you into the space looking for money, and why did you go that way? Did you go to VC? Did you go to angels first? what was the tactic you used, and then everybody can kind of jump into that.
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. You know, I like to joke that I'm VC kryptonite. I probably have the distinguishing factor that I've been rejected from more VCs than probably anybody on the planet. I actually kept track. 465 rejections. You know, after 200 or so, you're wondering, am I really onto something? By 300, I'm kind of like The Walking Dead. By 400, I don't know what I was doing. But anyway, I think the key is traction. I have the ability to be very early. My first company I started in, well, actually my second company. First company failed. I don't talk about that. The second company did really well. We started really too early. I created a cloud computing company in 2003. I called it infrastructure as a service. It took a while for the rest of the world to clue in that was even a thing. So timing is extremely important. So I think the big takeaway for me in terms of the sort of realization of how I went from bootstrapped, we bootstrapped that company for almost 10 years before we actually went and raised substantial amounts of capital. So one, timing is very important. Two, traction is extremely important, and access to money. Money is really comes down to who you know. So assuming you have a good idea and the right traction, you could be in the middle of nowhere, and that really doesn't really matter if you don't know the right people to get you the right access to the money. And I think my number 3, 4. The fourth thing is raising capital is a formula. There's no real sort of art behind it. It's doing the same things. Once you know the process in which you have to sort of execute on raising capital, it's always just doing the same thing. So if you can show the traction, if you can show the opportunity, if you can have the pitch and you know the right people, generally speaking, you're going to raise capital. If you don't have those things, then you're probably not.
Okay, no, that's a good point. Justin, you want to jump in?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, I agree with most of those things. It comes down to definitely who's in your network and how you use that network. And for us, when we raised, we've thankfully had 2 successful exits as early on in our career, and we spent the last 10 years, 12 years, selling other people's business for them. So we got to see what they did well. And for us, we wanted to make sure that when we went out for our original seed round and we went to the States, and it's a big thing they might talk about today, is bringing capital from US where they have a much bigger appetite for startups and technology than we've seen in Canada. And that's changing now in our recent round, which a bunch of people in this room have been participated in. It's a much different landscape and it's changing. So one is, which I agree, your network. 2, VC is a interesting game, had a lot of no's, had some yeses as well, but they're a whole different breed of people looking for a whole different set of tools and results than angels do. So I want to talk about angels for a second and the rationale of why you should think about them. One is there for you. That's what they exist in pre-seed and early money. But 2, I'll give you an example. We have a couple of VCs on our seed round, and we had a problem. And our problem was we weren't able to process dollars. Most of our users are in the United States, and their card would get flagged every time they went to do a transaction as a foreign transaction here in Canada. Just because, and it was weird. So we reached out to them and said, we have this awesome firm. They're really great. They've solved this problem before. They normally charge $300,000 for you. It's $150,000. Well, we're a startup. You just gave us money to put into our company. $150,000 is a lot of money. So I said, well, that won't work. So let me go back to the drawing board. And what I did is the monthly emails that I do out to my set of investors, friends of the company, people that I've just ever met, people on the street, any email I can throw in there. I wrote an email and said, here's our update, here's where we are, we're growing, but here's the problem that we had. And all the angel investors, and some who weren't, came to me and said, we'll solve that problem for you. We've been there. No cost. We just want to help you. And I think that's the difference when you go to angels and they're people who are looking for you to succeed. And it's not about pattern recognition, as you talked about. You're not fitting just a specific formula. Well, I'm sure angels look for pattern. It's not the same thing. There's a red and green spreadsheet of VCs have. If you don't know, you go in. They look at your unit economics, how much you're spending to get a customer versus how much that customer is worth to you, your churn rates, your attrition rates. And if you don't fall in them, they don't hit all green and you're red, the investment committee just says no. So angels are a little more lax in that way, and they're a lot more helpful. So I really suggest that you come to more events like this. I just came from another one tonight. It was pretty interesting. And get to know the people. And when you are confident about what you're doing, you have a product, and everyone says they want to be a unicorn or disrupting an industry, don't look for that. That's my biggest suggestion. Look how you can fill a desperate need in a market. And when you fill a desperate need, that's when you'll really stand out and people know that your product will have one that has legs and will grow.
Angela, what's your thoughts around how angel investors jump into that? I think Justin touched on that pretty well by giving the a good plug for angels, but I think at the end of the day, you probably have a point of view too where you're not really competing with a VC, but I think you're bringing a lot of value into the ecosystem. Maybe you can explain how you guys review opportunities like what these guys have.
Well, I think both you guys are amazing, and you both touched on some really important points that I see. So I'm a regular member of the screening committee at York Angels, and so we're the gate in terms of how does a company get from a small boardroom into the larger audience to gain that investment interest. And one of the things that I always look for with these with companies coming in and pitching is looking at the individual, the entrepreneur, right? Do they have the right stuff? And the right stuff is very flexible in the sense of it's different within each opportunity. And I don't get razzle-dazzled by all the numbers in the spreadsheets and the unicorn growth and all of that sort of stuff. I really focus on what is the real damn problem that you're trying to solve, and can you monetize that? And do you have a vision on monetizing it, and what resources do you need in order to do it? And the reason why I ask those questions is because, and why I focus on it, is as angels, the greatest value that we can bring is on those elements, filling in those gaps that gets you into that trajectory that you want to get to. It doesn't mean that we have all the answers, but we may actually have a network of individuals or resources that we can tap into that can plug in those gaps that are missing there. And the one thing, and I share that long journey that you went through. What was the magic number? 400 rejections or 465? Remember, see, it's printed in your brain, right? And invariably, a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's just a bit of advice that I can share with you. There is a real overemphasis on chasing money instead of chasing customers and trying to capture some traction. Because as soon as you have that traction, what's been labeled as a very confrontational engagement of entrepreneur and angels and pitching, it becomes a lot more amiable when you've got that ability to demonstrate. It's not just me saying this. These people said it. And it doesn't mean that it needs the entire world to say it. But can you find a few that are willing to actually agree with your concept and actually pay for it in some fashion?
Just to that point about the no's, we've all got a lot of no's. No's are your best friends. I just want to tell you right now, they are your learning time. They are the opportunity when you can reach back to someone and say, okay, while I hated that you gave me a no, can you please explain to me the rationale of why you gave me a no? And I want 2 to 3 paragraphs, nothing less. And I say that all the time. It might come off coy, but I want to know the reason, because every time that I get a no, that means I go back to my pitch and I change it somehow. Either I presented it in a wrong way, either I gave them a number too early that didn't make sense for them. A lot of what happened tonight when you guys were giving great advice on the pitches, those are what everyone wants to know. And when someone asks you a question, that's the opportunity that they want to know something specific. That's when you dive deep into that piece of it and then know for the next time. It's the probably the thing that most people want to know. Spend some time there. It's not about emotions. You know, we talk about it a lot at our company. It's about the data. And when you get data back and you've given that, whether it's an AI system, which we work on, or the cars that we just saw, we learn from that. You should do the same thing. It's like an MVP product when you're coming out of here. Your pitch is an MVP. Every single time you get feedback, change it until it's perfect. And when you find the right people who have belief, remember, for the people in this room, if you're pitching people and going out to get money, they have to love your idea, but they have to like you. They have to know that you're going to passion and go through anything to get where you need to go. And that's how angels really evaluate what's going to happen with the company. So I think no's are a pretty important piece of the whole puzzle.
So how do you guys feel about the U.S. going across the border? I know, Justin, you mentioned that you have raised dollars on both sides of the border, and I think everybody in the panel has. Was it your first approach? Was it just get some quick money and use the herd mentality that if I have some money, everybody's going to layer in, just like if I have some sales in a sector, then the rest of the sector will jump in? What's kind of the logic behind where you're going to find the money? You said that Ruben said there was a plan and stick to it. So how do you tie those elements together to drive out everybody here so they can understand what that process is?
Well, I can tell you my story. You know, we started in Etobicoke, which I like to say is the native word for cloud. I have no idea what it means, but anyway, we struggled here in Canada. We were, I think, the first investment from the Ontario Centres of Excellence back in 2008. You know, so but the money was good at the time, but it didn't really do too much for us, to be honest. So when we ultimately went to the States, we actually realized a lot of like what you said. It's hard to get American money in Canada. Structurally, it's hard to move the money, you know, from U.S. to Canada, and then if you happen to exit, it's hard to get it back again. So, you know, it's just there is a firewall between the two countries. So ultimately what we did is we determined we needed a scalable, repeatable business model. So once we figured out what and how to sell it, everything changed. So when we went to the States, we did a merger with another company that gave us sort of access to the U.S. market as an actual U.S. corporation. And we also had a repeatable process. So when we merged with that company, we were doing about $4.5–5 million in revenue. Within 36 months, we brought the revenue to $100 million. And we figured out basically how to sell the thing that we had been building for the last 12 years. And once we started figuring out how to sell, showing up to an investor and saying, you know, we know how to sell it. Look, we've just done it and we can do it. And your money is going to add fuel to our fire. That was it. That was the pitch. And suddenly we were getting checks. The first was from Intel. They gave us a check for $45 million. And then we got SAP. They gave us another $45 million. And then we just sort of basically went through this process of going to do an IPO. And the interesting part of the IPO process was the IPO was essentially a form of liquidity for those investors, but it also formed an easy way to sort of get additional funding, which brought us up to about 120. And during the IPO process, which if you guys are unfamiliar, I mean, initial public offering we were going to do on the NASDAQ at the time, it ended up being a process for us to actually shop the company, which ultimately led to us actually selling the company. So during this roadshow you do when you're doing an IPO, there's a roughly about 3-month period where you basically show up at rich people's offices in New York and other places and say, look, we're going to go public, you can get a discount. And essentially, you know, Morgan Stanley, our banker, kind of brought us on this roadshow. They made $20 million for 3 months of, you know, partying basically, and through that, IBM says, oh, we really like what you're doing, and they offered us $1 billion offer. So $1 billion bucks, to, you know, so we wouldn't go public because I think their worry was the fact that if we went public, our market cap would be higher and it'd be ultimately more expensive for them to buy it. And then one of the things that the investment banker said at that point was, you know, shop that shit. I quote, shop that shit. So, you know, I'd spent the last 15 years of my life building this company, and you know, they just referred to it as shit. But anyway, you know, it was good shit, I guess. And ultimately, we did shop that shit, and we got an offer from EMC. They offered us an additional $200 million. I guess when your first offer is $1 billion at what's $200 million between friends, we took the $200 million extra and we sold to EMC. 4 months later, the company ultimately EMC was bought by Dell for $67 billion, which is like the gift that keeps on giving, or a whale eating another whale. I don't know. Anyway, the moral of the story, as I'm giving you my quick sort of story of my sort of funding process. It takes time, it takes passion, you have to stay committed, and ultimately, for me, just don't give up, you know? If you're not passionate about what you do, then no one else is going to be either. And I stuck with it, even when everyone else was telling me cloud computing was never going to happen. And now you're probably all using it to some degree.
That's a good point. Justin?
Sure. I look at it a little bit differently. That's a great story. Obviously, you've done very well. let's talk about a typical startup situation going in. I looked at it going, the Canadian landscape at the time when we started our company in 2014, VCs were still into mining and oil and all that sort of stuff. Technology was just coming into the play. So I said, while we've done very well for ourselves and it's been great, let's take the opinion that we don't really know anything. And because of that, there's a lot of accelerators that were happening. Canada didn't have any great ones. So we are actually invited to some of the top ones, Y Combinator, Tech Stars, all that good stuff. And we decided not to go with them to being a group, a cohort of a couple or 75 to 100 different people in that class. And one of this little accelerator called Generator, which we had no idea about, out of Milwaukee, called us. And they said, we want you to come down here. And we said, no, we don't want to. We have office mortgage kids. We're not coming down there. Eventually, they convinced us to do that. And the reason why we chose to go with them was we realized if we go to become a small cohort company of 5 companies in a place that's not New York, not Silicon Valley, we're kind of like fish in a barrel. When you get into that spot where there's people hungry for tech investment, who want to know these great companies, and they're being vetted through this entire process. There's 5 of them, and you have hundreds of investors in the Midwest, from Chicago to Minneapolis. We raised $1 million US in essentially 2 days. It was easy for us to do that. They liked the deal. They saw what we were going through. We had traction at the time. So back to the point, sales cures all problems. Don't worry about your product. Don't worry if doesn't have exactly what it's supposed to have. Build that as it comes. Go sell the shit out of your product. Do it. Find those customers. They are more money coming back in. That's what keeps you alive. And because we did that from the very beginning, it's a long story. I won't tell you how we did it, but I'll tell you in 24 hours, we did over $500,000 in revenue when we first launched our company. It was a no-brainer for these people. And the point is, it's good for people to put in money once because they believe in you. But we've been lucky where we put our money where our mouth is. And our largest investors from the very beginning have now put in their money 3 times to our company, continue growing it. So you better do what you say and say what you do, and the money comes to you. That's really my 10 cents.
I've got a quick counter to that. So, I've been involved with Techstars, Alchemist, and a variety of other sort of big name accelerators. I helped launch Techstars Cloud program in 2011. Startup accelerators are kind of like Ivy League schools. Sure, you can go to a state college or a community college and you'll probably do just fine, but there is a level of cachet associated with those types of programs. If you get into Techstars, just an example, I've mentored about a dozen companies in Techstars. They've done quite well. The reality is you're going to raise probably a minimum of $4.5 million by just being in that program, regardless of how good your product is or not. If you go to a no-name accelerator, is this working? Yeah. All right, yeah, you might raise money, but it's not going to be as easy. So what you're looking for is the removal of friction in the funding process, really. And the venture capitalists are not smart in the sense that they're good at knowing the future of technology. They know how to pick based on the things that they know worked before. So they look for indicators of success. Great team, right? If someone's been successful and done it before, they're more likely to do it again. Are they associated with people who are successful? Is Y Combinator better than Techstars or that random outfit in the Midwest? Well, probably not, but it seems to be to these folks. So the perception kind of makes reality. That's all I'm saying. And ultimately, you want to associate yourself with people and organizations and things that have been successful, and you'll be more likely to be successful.
So can I
just go.
There's a couple of things, and the purpose of this evening, especially with the mentors and the advisors, and I look at it from I ran my own company, co-located in Motorola. Wonderful place. I'd always have these guys come over. They sit down, they chat, spend an hour, tell me how great I was doing, and I'd thank them at the end of the day and said, listen, next time you want to have a coffee, let's have a coffee, but we won't have it here. Just don't waste my time. Don't tell me what I'm doing right. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. And so when you look at all of these accelerators and incubators and everything, there is a tendency to sort of boost the sort of the ego and not necessarily get to the real nugget, as Gregory was pointing out. Well, this is really a key element that you have to think about. And by doing that, you only become stronger. You only become better. And well, we don't need our ego stroked. What we need is a direction on how we can become much, much better. So to me, I think that, and listening to you guys also, I get that sense, right? That there is, you can't be fearful. You have to face it, and you take it, and with a grain of salt, and learn from it, and then grow. And I'm really amazed at what you guys have done. And Justin, I know that my investment will be at a 10x in 8 months, right? That's what you promised, I think.
So that's great. So you guys, and I kind of have to reiterate that whole point, is that you have to be confident, and when you are going for the dollars, Canadian, US, you really have to put your foot forward, drive in, and if you take a no, you take a no. Chalk them up, 450 no's, that still gives you thousands of yeses. You just got to keep going until you get them, and when you do, you're going to knock it out of the park, because it's that hard work and effort that puts it forward, and you got to believe in what you do. And so I think what I want to do is ask anybody in the audience that has a question. Anybody have something they want to ask the guys about raising funds? Oh, Gregory, you have a mic. Wait a second, I don't know. Is okay, perfect.
I'm very impressed with your experiences. I would just make one comment. Raising money, I fully agree with I went through that in France, but I would just say something specific. I would say to make sure that you can make everything to get money from Canada first, because I understand when you guys are raising money from the US, but at the end of the day, we create value in Canada for Canada. And I am an immigrant, new Canadian, we call that this way. And when you've got money coming from the US, at the end of the day, you create value to the US, and the money is going back there whenever you create jobs here.
Yeah, I can agree with that, but the fact is we're bringing foreign investment into Canada, we're creating more jobs, we're paying more taxes here. I think it's a big advantage for our community to bring those dollars in and help us grow our community instead of always exporting our talent and all that sort of stuff.
I agree, but when I say that is I'm working with VCs right now, yeah. And when you've got VCs from the Bay, the money is going back there. They don't invest the money there. I mean, they invest their dollars here to get that 10x of Angel mentioned, and then they don't reinvest necessarily in Canada.
Not necessarily, but the reality is for them to get their money back, you've had to have some sort of liquidation event. That liquidation event has created more capital in Canada and for the founders to go on and do some new things. And yes, it's bringing money back. If they invested in Canada in the first place, there's no saying they wouldn't the second time, especially when Canada is taking the effort right now to build their technological landscape and change things here. We're growing great companies. And you know what the thing is? The people in the Valley, look, so many VCs are coming up here right now because the deal flow, everyone has the same deal flow there. So they have mandates that they're coming in and putting their money into the Canadian market. Plus, they're also getting 30% on their dollar. So, or 25 or 20, whatever it is today. So while I can agree, we don't want it all to flow back, they still, at some point, you hope that a VC is never taking more than 30% of your company, 70% of the money that stays here in Canada, which they helped you create by funding in the beginning. So there's some value there, in my opinion.
Well, there certainly is, and just because of the amount of time that we've had, guys, I want to say we could talk about this for hours because there's so much to talk about when it comes to the finance side. I think Frank wants to make one last comment.
Sorry, for a lot of the folks in the room that are raising funds, even raising $300,000, $400,000 is a lot of money. Can you just share what you felt like as an entrepreneur when somebody gave you that first money and you thought, holy shit, I'm not crazy? People actually believe in me. Can you share what that feels like with the audience, guys?
I don't honestly remember what it feels like, to be frank with you. The reality is I believed in myself, and I knew I needed to find the people who could back it, and we worked really hard to get there. So I think it was, I do remember where I was when we got the first term sheet on our pre-money valuation at that time, and I was pretty excited about it. But all it meant was I have much more work to do. Not that I'm going out and partying and spending that on booze for our people at our office and stuff. It was time that now we really get to work. So that was the feeling that I had personally, and ever since still the same.
Yeah, I think I'm same. I think it was a milestone for sure. But I think for me the bigger milestone was the first decent amount of money I made from a customer who paid me, and that was something that was like someone actually wants to buy this thing that I've been building. You know, I was fairly jaded when it came to venture capitalists, and that's why I do the business I have now. But yeah, ultimately, all those rejections for me drove my desire to sort of pave my own path. And do my own thing and kind of prove everybody wrong, I guess. And ultimately, that's also why I became such a sort of staunch mentor and helping other companies and early entrepreneurs be successful. Because, ultimately, when I look back at my early days, I didn't have that level of mentorship that I think I probably would have made my life a hell of a lot easier. And if I could go back as an early entrepreneur, back when I started my first company when I was 19, and, I should have went out and found some experienced entrepreneur who could have told me all the dumb shit I was about to do.
And I agree with that point. I think the getting an investment or an agreement on your vision is really satisfying. But having said that, it also brings to the table, holy crap, I really did a great job here convincing this group on investing in my vision. I have to deliver now, right?
Stress just quadrupled in 5 seconds.
Exactly. And I now need to make this a reality. And this is serious because I can't just burn this money and then come back and say, well, I need some more money if I haven't really did what I wanted to do and what I told you I would do. So it actually puts a real commitment on your side, even more so than from the investor side. They've gone through that pain and agony of determining, are you the right one? And once they've made that decision, it's gone from their perspective. And now it's your turn to do the heavy lifting.
Well, on that note, guys, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you very much.
Is the pizza here?
Yes, there's pizza upstairs if you guys are all still hungry. There's pizza up there. So the last thing I'll say is thank you guys for all coming. Thank you for all of our sponsors and all of the startups that came in and pitched, and you guys today. Thank you for all your help, and we look forward to seeing you guys at the next event.
All right.
Cheers.
And they picked a fan of baseball.